I have a friend of mine, close friend of mine, who was suicidal, and I would talk with him, and he didn't really have like any deep reasons why. It wasn't like his life was terrible. He had a pretty good life, actually, all things considered. He was smart, talented. People liked him. He just couldn't see it in himself for some reason. He was just saying, I've been struggling my entire life to try to find a reason to keep going. And it wasn't because anything bad had happened. He just had this, they used to call it melancholy. Why do we always ascribe fear to that? Do you think older people really sit around just like terrified about the world?
Change is scary, I guess, to them. Like, the world is changing really fast, and you're just like still the same person.
Yeah, but I guess it goes back to that question. Do you think they really sit around afraid? When you talk to old people, do they sound afraid or they sound angry? Do you think, now here's an even better question. When you are their age, do you suppose you're going to be changing, or do you suppose that you're going to be angry or scared? Yeah. But so many of our problems in life come from miscommunication and not understanding each other. So think about this. Let's say that I buy a new house, but so I have my house right now. I live in South Park. Yes, it's a real place. It's not a cartoon.
You live in South Park?
Yeah, I do. And if I were to say to you guys, all right, let's see. I'm moving on to a new house, but I'm going to give you my old house, let's say. So you say, oh, cool. So you come over to my house, you walk in, and you see all my, you see my stuff, and I tell you, hey, everything that is here, I've kind of, have built up the last, let's say, 10 years or so. I've lived there for about 15 years. So then I would ask you, just take care of the place. Okay. And then I give you the keys, and then I leave. Okay. Now, what are some things that you would do? Yeah.
Dust.
What's that?
Dust.
You would dust?
Take care of the place.
Why? That's the dust I have, though. Are you gonna move stuff when you dust? Are you gonna move stuff when you dust?
Yeah.
Like what? Where are you gonna move it to?
Well, I'm gonna lift it up and then dust and then put it back down.
Are you gonna be careful with it when you? I put
Of
that.
course.
Oh my God! Just be careful with it, okay?
I will.
You follow? This is what the world is like, man. You have people who have lived here for a while, 20, 30, 40, 50 years or so, and they finally got their house the way they want it. The world is not perfect, but it's kind of, they've put these things in place. And then the younger generation comes along and says, well, I'm gonna start dusting. And then the older generation is like, but this is my stuff though. Yeah, but you don't understand, things have changed. So like, for example, you have this television. I'm gonna go ahead and get rid of this television and bring in a flat screen because, technology's changed, so things have changed. So when you move into this is what we do when we move into a new apartment, even if it's furnished. We maybe get rid of some of the furniture, we rearrange things because we want to make it more like it's our home. Because if you go in there and you leave everything exactly as it is, and you never move anything around, you're never gonna feel like it's your place. You're only gonna feel like it's, oh, I'm living in Scanlon's old place. And so one of the first things you'd probably do is dust. You wouldn't need to, by the way, but if you did, then you would, maybe you'd move like, I don't even have anything. A computer, so you move my computer because you're gonna dust. And then you say, actually, why does he even have the computer here? It would make way more sense if we put the computer over there. And then I come home, I come by that day to check on some things, and all of a sudden I see everything's been moved around. I'm like, what in the hell are you doing? Well, the way you had it before didn't make any sense, Scanlon. It did to me. Yeah, well, times change. Things have changed around here. The world is like that. You're moving into somebody else's place. Yeah, they invited you in. Yeah, they brought you in, and that's where you live now. But just understand why it is that old people get so frustrated with things. Because when things are changing, they don't walk around scared. Like, oh my God, things are changing. Oh. If we want to talk about which generation has the most fear, I'll give you a heads up. It ain't the older ones. So you're going to see that things are changing, but they spent their whole lives kind of building things up the way that they are. And again, not that it's perfect, but it's good for them, makes sense for them. So now you come along and you change out, I don't know, like, I don't have a television. Let's say I owned a television. And then I came in and all of a sudden my television was gone and you have a new one up there. And you were like, oh no, this one's better. What do you mean it's better? Well, it's connected to the, it works off of an app on your smartphone. What app? I don't have the app. Oh, you have to go download the app. What's the app? Then you tell me. Wait, it says you have to make an account. Well, yeah, you have to enter all your information to make an account. Oh my God, this is so friggin' annoying. To you, downloading apps and making accounts is Tuesday. It's just what you do. I mean, how many accounts a day do you have? How many accounts a week do you make? You know? But for older people, they don't do that kind of stuff. So it isn't that they don't know how to. It's not that they're stupid. It's not that they're afraid. It's really annoying because they've never had to do those things before. And so when things change, it isn't just that it frightens people because they don't know what to expect. I mean, they do know what to expect. Because one thing that we forget is, like I asked you earlier, how many of you are going to be that person later on who gets afraid or angry because things have been moved around? At some point, your grandparents were the people who moved into the apartment of the world and moved some things around and pissed off their grandparents because they changed some things up. I'm not saying it's good or bad, I'm just saying it's different. And so, like, you know, when you move my television to that wall instead of this wall, is it good? No, it's just different. It's better for you because now you can look at it and go, this is mine. Now I could come in and say, well, this makes no sense because now to put the television over there, you had to run a cord all the way over here. And you go, yeah, but I hung lights from it, so it looks cool. You know? We have differences of opinions about how things should look. This is why we make a mistake when we say, like, you know, the young people are the future. Yeah, the future, not the present, but the future. And what that means is that we should kind of understand why things are the way that they are. Nothing just kind of sprung up out of nowhere. Even if you go to the DMV, which some of you guys will get that opportunity soon, if you go to the DMV and you'll find out how like long it takes and how like annoying it is and the lines and the people and everything. You might be like, why the hell did they even do it this way? There's a reason that they do it that way. I'm not saying it's the best reason, but I'm saying that they don't just do it for no reason. They find that it works for them. And so when you go down to McDonald's and you order, why do they do the things the way that they do them? Because it works for them. That's all. So you have to find out what works for you, and when you do that, you'll replace the older generation, and then they'll be annoyed, not because they're scared, but because what used to work for them is no longer in place. And it's just annoying. You spent your whole life doing things a certain way, now you gotta relearn it and redo it. You know? So how do you kind of cope in that kind of a world? I suppose what you do is you get used to to doing new things. I guess first off, remember that you once came into the world and moved the television around, and that you moved stuff around to dust. So understand that you might be irritated now, but your grandparents were irritated at some point also. Ask yourself if you made things better or worse, and then just kind of recognize things change, and that could be exciting because that means that things aren't always the same. There's always something to spark your imagination, spark your interests, to wonder why things are being done the way that they are. And you can get irritated if you think that things are being done wrong, but look at it objectively. Is it being done wrong, or is it just being done differently? And others. By the way, that becomes the real scary part for some of us. That last part there, when no one can save you, not from yourself. When you start to recognize that those things that are going to make a difference in your life, that you end up being responsible for them. Because there's two real ways of looking at it. One is that you're responsible for everything, or you're responsible for nothing. And they're both equally terrifying. They both have their positives and negatives, but both of them are going to create their challenges. Yeah.
Not only.
Yeah, oftentimes we say it wrong. We say, I could have done more. What we actually mean is, I wish there was more I could have done and that I did it. Because sometimes there's nothing else you can do. That's the part that sucks. That's the powerless part. If there's more I can do, then there's more I can do. And that means I can keep trying, I can keep trying. But when you hit a certain wall and you realize there's nothing else that I could have done, but now you just have to sit there and wait. And waiting is a really hard thing. Knowing when to let go is hard. Knowing when you should, knowing if you should keep going, that's hard too. No, letting go and continuing, they're both very difficult. But when you know to finally step back and say, I've done everything I can, and even then, at what point is it your responsibility to keep doing things or not? Yeah? And by the way, you described that teacher problem very well right now. I said without even meaning to, you described the teacher problem right now. Because like as a teacher, I can sit back and I can look at the world. I've been around long enough, I can look at the world and see the trends.
Yeah.
And the scarier part is, I can point you out. I can tell you where you're headed. And many of you will say, well, I don't really have the nah guy in class. I always hear teachers who have the nah guy. Nah. Like the sky's blue. Nah. Today's Monday. Nah. And they just say nah about everything. Now, what sucks is that some of you actually realize it yourselves too. That you also recognize that about yourself. And the tragic part is that it isn't written in stone. It could be fixed. I'm not even saying it could still be fixed, because saying still almost sounds like you're nearing the end of the rope, and you're not. You're not even close to nearing the end of the rope. It could be fixed. And it could be fixed in ways that not even just that but like that you recognize would be good for you. If you cared about someone, like let's say you had your own child and they were doing the things that you're doing or not doing the things that you're not doing, I wonder, you have to recognize you wouldn't be happy with them at this. And not just happy with them, you could be mad at them. You'd be mad at them because you care so much about them. And yet we struggle so much to care enough about ourselves to do the things that we know that we should be doing. I mean, have I ever been wrong about that? I'm sure I have been, but I couldn't tell you one. Have I been proven right? Oh, constantly. Constantly. I stay in touch with a lot of people, man. And I see it happening over and over and over again. And the things that I could tell you even what those character traits are. And yet, it won't do much, They're there. And that's why this thing I wrote on the board, this diagram here, it looks so simple, and yet it's so difficult to overcome. One of you said something to the effect of, at some point, it's your choice if you're going to make changes or not. But that line right there is, I don't know how to describe it in ways that actually reflect the importance of its significance. Yeah, at some point you can make a choice to change or not, but it begs the question of, what about all this time over here? In other words, why is it that some people choose to change and some people don't? Why is it that some people will encounter the very same things and overcome them that other people find just insurmountable? Why is it that some people will hear the exact same sentence and say, nah? Some people will hear that sentence and just be like, huh, anyway. And then some people will hear it and it can be life-moving. And we might say, well, it's because everyone makes a choice. Yeah, but you have like a whole personality that leads up to that point. And it almost begs that question of, do you really have a choice then? Because not many of us chose our personalities as much as we think we did. It has to do with where we were raised, how we were raised, our genetics, the things that we encountered, our life experiences, how those life experiences caused us to interpret things. How those life experiences caused us to interpret other life experiences. And then, at some point you might say, given all of that you didn't have a choice over, now you have a choice. Yeah, but do you really though? And if so, how do you reach to people? Like, for example, therapy. Therapy is highly successful. Therapy is very, very successful. And you'll hear this all the time. People will say, if you're struggling with mental health issues, go see a therapist. They're incredibly incredibly effective. Yeah, but why are they effective? There's a reason for it. Because the person who goes and seeks out therapy is a person who has made the choice to want to change. When you have court-ordered therapy, in other words, like you're forced to do it, not that you want to, the success rates go way down. So you're using up to you're accounting for a population that has already decided they want to improve themselves and do better. And now they're just looking for a way to, or maybe they're kind of doubting that it's possible, but they're really hoping for hope. I have a friend of mine, close friend of mine, who was suicidal, and I would talk with him, and he didn't really have like any deep reasons why. It wasn't like his life was terrible. He had a pretty good life, actually, all things considered. He was smart, talented. People liked him. Just couldn't see it in himself for some reason. And so I was talking with him, and he was just saying, I've been struggling my entire life to try to find a reason to keep going. And I guess he was diagnosed with depression when he was like 12 years old or something like that. You know, his mom just recognized there's something odd about him, so she took him to a therapist, and they just said he has, he has severe depression. And it wasn't because anything bad had happened. He just had this, they used to call it melancholy. He just had this melancholy sadness about him, and you never know it. I mean, if you knew it, you knew it. In other words, if you were that kind of person, you could talk to him and you realize, because you recognize your own. But anyway, so he went to a therapist finally, and the therapist ended up sending him away and saying, I can't help you. So I was talking with him, I asked him, so how'd that therapy thing go? And he said, the therapist said they couldn't help me. I'm like, oh, damn, dude. Imagine if you're already feeling kind of down, and you go to a therapist just says, I got nothing for you, man. Good luck with your life. And then he went to another one, and something similar happened where the therapist tried and then just said from the very beginning that they didn't think they could really help him, but they found the case so interesting that they wanted to talk to him some more. And so then he finally went to another one, and that one he worked with for a short while. And that therapist really thought he could help him. It's called cognitive behavioral therapy. And then I guess life just kind of happened, and then my friend just kind of gave up on going. And I said, why? And he said, because it seemed like the therapist got more out of it than I did. It seemed like he enjoyed talking, and he really believed he could help something. He says, but it's just not working for me. And so fortunately, he's still alive, but every once in a while I talk with him, I'll ask him, like, have you found a reason? He's like, no, but there has to be one. And he describes himself as an optimist. I called him an eternal optimist, actually. That's where the phrase comes from, because it's not that he thinks that things are great. It's that he thinks that things have to get better because, well, they just do. He's like, yeah, he's deeply melancholy, but he's driven by an idea that, things have to get better. And he's able to look around at the world and say, everybody else seems to have it together so well. And then he's smart enough to know, though, that people just seem like they do. But that everybody else wakes up every day and finds a reason to keep going. And so he figures everybody else has found some kind of a reason, so he keeps looking. He's just said he's not ready to give up yet because he hasn't exhausted all of his options, which is interesting because he feels like he has an obligation because of the rareness and the specialness of life that he's been given this gift, that he has to try to make some kind of a use out of it. And so you look at that guy and it's like, my goodness, he grew up with a melancholy that he didn't seem to have much of a choice over, but it shades how he sees everything else in life. It shades how he sees the whole world. And as much as he tries, he's one of the smartest people I've ever met, actually. He's a very smart guy. He's also stupid in some regards, but, most geniuses are. And so there's nothing there. He can't save himself from himself. Certainly can't save anybody else until he can save himself. So that's kind of like his priority in life, to try to make that happen. So if you're looking for that reason, keep going. My friend's been going a while. I've known him for a long time. And every once in a while, I'll just message him and ask him, so, still looking? He says, yep. Sounds optimistic. So, questions, comments, concerns, complaints, criticisms, critiques?